Are you tired of the cookie-cutter approach to education that's stuck in the last century? Are you seeking a win-win situation where your family thrives, your kid's education is revolutionary, and you still get to chase your own dreams? Welcome to Unschooled Unleashed. Unlock your child's genius. I'm your host, Matthew Jarecki, an unapologetic rebel dad and promoter of what many consider to be educational anarchy. You know the world isn't going to be won by those that just toe the line. It's the innovators, the visionaries, and the resilient spirits that are going to thrive. Our mission here is to forge those world changers within our very homes with less stress, energy, and time. Unschooled Unleashed starts now. Welcome back to another fantastic episode of Unschooled Unleashed. I'm your host, Matthew Jarecki, and today we're going to talk about how to manage your finances to be able to have a parent at home. A lot of you want to do home education, but say you can't do it. I'm going to try and poke some holes in those beliefs, and I'm going to make some suggestions that you can check out. It's not for everyone, but if you really want to do home education, I 100% guarantee you can do it. 100%, as long as if you have the two parents, 100% guaranteed. It's going to take sacrifice. It's going to take a lot of hard work. It's going to take commitment, and it's going to take a lot of education. So hopefully this is, maybe not hopefully the beginning of your journey, but hopefully this ignites the beginning of your journey if you're not already on that journey, to start pursuing a life worth living and not just the rat race that we all tend to find ourselves in with the golden handcuffs and locked into the school schedule and all the fun stuff, and you can't afford to do anything fun or cool or exciting. But if that sounds interesting to you, stay tuned and let's dive in. Today we're going to talk about how to homeschool on one income, just some strategy stuff. And I feel this is important because I think a lot of people are looking for practical, numbers-backed, emotionally grounded path forward that shows how serious parents can actually afford to do home education on one income. And I'm going to talk about doing it in different ways. For example, cutting waste, realigning your priorities, and using your money to buy back some of your time. So what I want to talk about first is why this feels hard. Because I do want to acknowledge this feels hard. This is one question I get quite a bit is, it's not even a question. It's more of the limiting belief of, you just can't afford to live on one income nowadays. And I don't believe that to be the case even in the middle class. I think life is all about compromise. However, there is the two-income trap that makes it feel like both parents have to work. But most families are unknowingly spending to keep up with their lifestyle and whatever lifestyle they've determined is theirs, what they deserve, I think, as I hear what a lot of people say. Well, I went to school, I deserve to do this. Well, I'm not going to, sacrifice this or that because I worked hard to get to this point. Then this is what I want. It's like, okay, you're making your choices. But what we see is when both members of a family unit, both parents in a family unit, entered the workforce, it causes some inflationary things to happen. And what was an option at one point became a necessity over time. I'm not suggesting that, women should go back and just be in the house and that's the only option. Not at all. I don't think that's the case. But I do think it's become almost mandatory for both parents to work. Almost. Here's the caveat, and I'm going to teach you where that almost is. I think two families, or a family with two parents, in the household, can survive off one income. I think it's going to be difficult, but I think in 2025 you can do it. I'm doing it, technically I'm not doing it right now, but we could survive just off my income and do fine. So what you have to look first at least this is what I'm a fan of, if you're looking for an easy fix that you can do right now, you have complete control of, is looking at cutting your two biggest expenses. And again, this isn't going to be easy. This is going to be difficult. We're going to slice through some stuff that you might actually want. We're going to make it as least painful as possible. However, compromises will have to be made. You're looking for a way through this, and I'm going to tell you how. Housing. The average new home is about 2,400 square feet. But few families really need all that space. And I get this quote from ionhousing.org. They talk about the single family home size increase, and they list it out over time, and it's pretty interesting to look at. But what we see is that the size of a home keeps going up for single families. And that's funny because no one can afford the homes in 2025 we're hearing, yet they keep on building these big houses. Now, there was a slight decline for a while, but either way, kind of odd, don't you think? Me being in some real estate, lately, I understand that if you were to build a house and make that investment, you're not going to build a small house. You're not going to buy this expensive land and put a small house and get less of a price. You're going to build a nice big house in the nice neighborhood to get top dollar. That's what's going up in America right now. And I think it drives the price of everything up. The same thing with the necessity of having two family incomes. It's like if you don't have two incomes within your household, then you're at a disadvantage, and this is the case. So cutting back on the size of your house is definitely one hack. One thing that I did that I think was really beneficial is I decided I was going to buy a house, but instead of buying a single family, I bought a multifamily. I still have to mow the yard. I still have to take care of the roof. I still have to do the water heater. Now I just have 2 water heaters. I got 2 of just about everything. And if something goes out, I'm right there to fix it because I live in the double. That reduced my expenses tremendously. In fact, the rent alone, when I bought it, could pay for the entire mortgage, tax, insurance, and everything. That's very hard to find nowadays, but at least it's something, right? And the more you pay it down, and if you actually get it paid off, that is going to make you 100% be able to do it. Most people aren't willing to cut like that, but the more units you get under one roof, and if you live in one of those units and collect rent for the rest, the easier it is. You're just going to have to make some sacrifices. I know other people have done this. I think it's a great way to do it. You probably don't want to rent your rooms out while you live there and have kids. I understand that. I wouldn't do that. But there are some other ways to do that stuff. So reduce the size of your house. Go for a cheaper option. Downsize is going to help. Go for multifamilies if you think that's something that you want to go for, because it can certainly pour gasoline and fire on your finances. Plus, you get a bunch of tax deductions and all this other stuff. But the roof is still going to have to be replaced just like your single family at some point, so the costs aren't doubled. Anyways, the next expense, I said the 2 biggest expenses are the easiest to cut, and one is housing, and the second is cars. The average new car payment is $737. The average used car payment is $520 a month. This is significant. Most people have 2 cars if they have 2 people working in the house, 2 parents working. Well, you both can have cars, and most people decide to opt for the new car or used car with just a couple of years, and they're making a $500 car payment. I'm going to suggest that you buy a car, a reliable, low-maintenance car that fits your whole family, that's between 5 and 8 years old, with appropriate miles for its age or lower, where it's in decent condition. There's no mechanical stuff. You had it checked out. It's just an older car. Rust, that's a bonus. That gets you a discount. We're not looking to impress anyone. Our goal is to get home and do home education. Pull our kids out of school and do our own thing. This is the way to do it. Have a little bit of rust on your car. You can free up $5,000 to $8,000 a year per car doing this. Everyone always says, well, you're going to have to go over and put it in the repair shop and da-da-da-da-da-da. All right, let's break this down a little bit. If I were to have my transmission go out, and my numbers are off, I haven't looked at it in a while, but let's just go on the higher end. Let's say it's $4,000. Okay, we're coming up on, let's say you spent $12,000 on the car. Now it's $4,000 for a new transmission or an engine. If it were a used car, you're talking about a payment, assuming $500, about 8 months of payments, right? $4,000 to be able to replace that engine or transmission. Now, with that math, if you get anything else above that, like if you're able to repair it and you're able to drive it and you don't have to put anything more in it, yes, you had to put some money into that car, but you're not paying $500 for the rest of the month, right? Let's just say you did that right in the beginning. The first 8 months you had to pay $500 a month. Well, for the rest of the time, as long as nothing goes wrong, and things will go wrong, it's bonus time. You're getting $500 back in your pocket, right? Most cars don't have a transmission go out. If you're getting between that 5 and 8 year and it's a reliable car that has low maintenance costs. I've had my cars for almost 10 years and I bought them 8 years old. Honda CRVs last forever. We have had issues. And we go in there and we almost never have an issue that's greater than the average car payment a person has. And our car's never in the shop more than a couple days. So, I'm going to talk about having an emergency fund for when this stuff happens. Like if something goes bad, you're going to want money in the bank. But you get that car paid off. You drive the old one with rust. I told you how to target it. Key takeaway here is if you downsize your home and replace 2 vehicles with used vehicles within that range, you could save over $20,000 a year. Enough to offset a lost income in many households, okay? And if you're talking about leasing, it's the most expensive way to drive a car. An average lease costs around $600 according to Experian. I'm getting all these numbers from Experian, by the way, as far as the car stuff. You never build equity and you're paying a premium for that new car. It's just the most expensive way to do it. You have no equity in it. The new car, if you would have bought it new, it was $737 a month. Then you buy it used and lease it and it's $600. You're not getting anything in equity at the end. You have nothing. So people who think they're saving, you're paying a lower monthly payment, but if you're a payment person and just focused on that, you're not focused on acquiring wealth. In my opinion. Third thing I want to talk about is you're bleeding cash in the small ways, and you probably haven't. The majority of you have, maybe some of you guys listening to my podcast are pretty sharp. Because if you're looking at all this stuff, I assume you're someone who thinks outside the box and actually follows up on things and looks at stuff. But you know what? All of us make mistakes and none of us are perfect. So you're probably bleeding cash in small ways. Subscriptions and streaming. People estimate their monthly subscription service is about $86 per month. This was done on a CR research. Put a link to it. But they actually found that they were spending $219 a month when they actually looked at what they were spending on these streaming and subscription services. So more than double what they thought. So that should tell you to go over and look at those things right now if you haven't done so. Well, after this podcast, finish this first. Another thing people just don't even realize they're spending money on is dining out. They will spend, according to the BLS, they will spend $3,500 to $6,000 a year eating out. That is entirely too big for me. It's not palatable for me. I'll just say it like that. We eat out every once in a while. We haven't been lately because we're trying out a new diet and we have to avoid all that stuff. But when you're spending that much, don't tell me you don't have spare money. Credit card debt, another fancy one. Another one people don't even consider debt. Credit card debt. Of course it's debt. It's on your credit card. You owe it. The average household income, or the average household carries almost $7,000 in credit card debt at high interest. This is also according to experience. It's actually $67.30. That's how much they owe. Paying off debt removes monthly minimums and the stress trap. What I want to tell you, the secret is pay cash for everything. It buys breathing room. You can always go back and borrow. You can always do that. But having everything cash, it just the car drives different. Everything feels better. So the takeaway here is audit your spending. You're likely spending $800, $1,200 a month in spending that adds no value, but eats at your freedom. You might enjoy certain things, but it's chipping away at you. This one I want to mention is it's an add-on. Okay, people spend $12,000 to $15,000 a year in childcare. So if you have young kids, you got to put them in childcare so the spouse can go to work. Well, you better be making a lot more than that to justify putting your child in childcare, especially when you consider you have to drive to work and you have to spend gas. You have to do all these things. And I'm going to run through the numbers here in a second. But if you have someone at home cooking healthy meals and doing a whole bunch of stuff that you don't have to do now to pay someone to do it, right? So you're just cutting them on, you're feeding family, going shopping, finding the deals. You're limiting the childcare cost, reducing your overall expenditures. That is going to be a secret sauce, okay? So just keep that in mind. If you're making is just a little bit over what you're paying in childcare, why not just stay home? I don't understand that. All right, so by the numbers. So I got, let's see if I can do this in audio format. All right, so if we assume, I'm just going to run through some numbers here. Tell me if they're reasonable. This is in your head. We're going to compare before and after, what you can cut, like what you were doing before and, how much you can cut after. And we'll go line by line here. So mortgages and utilities, let's assume $2,000. That might be low for some of you. I'm trying to be conservative here. $2,000, I do think is a conservative estimate if you have a single family home and you're renting plus utilities, okay? But let's just say it's $2,000. You're doing pretty good, trying to keep your budget in there nice and tight. Car payments, you got 2 cars. Let's just say you got one new, one used. So that's going to add up to about $15,100 per year. Car insurance and gas. Well, you got a new car and you got a car payment, so you got to have full coverage. You can't go down to liability, which is what we do on our crappy old cars, that if it just got totaled, I don't even care. I'll just buy another one. I don't need to carry full coverage on that car because I don't need them to give me the money. It's not worth that much. But you're going to pay $4,000 right now because you are, you have the new cars. You have to have it. If you're leasing, I wouldn't even go there. Dining out, $4,800 a year. Subscriptions, $2,600 a year. Childcare, $15,000 a year. Credit card payments, $3,600 a year. Impulse, lifestyle spending, just extra cash, $3,000. That leads us to a grand total of $72,000. All right, so $72,000. Now let's go over and make some cuts. All right, we're going to switch to somewhere else. We're going to downsize. Now we're only paying $1,250 a month. Hard to find, but I got more to say, so don't tune me out yet. $1,250 a month, much more reasonable. We automatically saved, $9,000? Because it was 24, we're down to 15. Car payments. You decided you were going to get old used cars, 5 to 8 years old. You have no car payments. You got a nice big emergency fund in case one of those cars goes and you're not worried about it. Boom, you have 0 car payments. So that is $15,100 back in your pocket. car insurance and gas. Well, let's just say we knock off about $1,000 from that because you've switched to liability or at least lowered your coverage. Dining out. Instead of dining out a lot, you're just going to dine out maybe once a week, maybe every other week. And you're spending, let's say, $100 a month on it. So maybe that's just once a month for you, but that's $1,200 a year now. Compare that to the $4,800 we were assuming before, where we're eating out like basically every week. Not so good. That's for eating out, spending $100 four times a month versus just one time a month at $100. Subscriptions, we're going to cut those back. It's $2,600. We're going to go back to $300. We're gonna make sure we're not subscribing to things we don't use. Childcare. Well, since you're staying at home, that goes from say 12 to 15. We used 15. It's going to go down to 0. Credit card payments. I suggest you go debt free. I'm going to talk about that in a minute. That goes from $3,600 down to 0. Impulse lifestyle spending, $300. We're going to bring it down to $1,200. $100 a month. You could maneuver the numbers. I'm just making up stuff here, guys. That ends up going to, $20,700. That's how much you need to survive with that. Again, you're going to have food that you're going to buy on top of that. It's not the total expenses, but out of the things we're saving, we were at about 72,000, and now we're at, so we're about at 70, and now we're about 20,000. So we're saving about $4,400 a month, which is more than enough to replace a second income, while you're gaining time, sanity, and family freedom. So what are some more ways we can actually do this? Save $50,000 annually. More than that, actually. Well, don't say you can't. Say you're not willing to. Most people don't need more money. They need fewer obligations and better priorities. This guy by the name of Ramit Sethi, he wrote a book, I Will Teach You to Be Rich. If you want to check that out, feel free. I read it. I thought it was a great strategy. He believes in a lot of debt. I don't. And so that's where I limit it there. But what he says that I do agree with fully and I embrace is spend extravagantly on what you love. Cut mercilessly on what you don't. That has become a great life principle for me because if I enjoy it, I don't mind spending money on it. So if it's a cafe latte on my way to work every day and it's a $5 coffee, sure, go ahead, get it. That's going to cost you what? Don't put me in the math on the spot. So if you got, gosh, I can't do it. It's too late. Just got done working a 12-hour shift. I didn't sleep last night. But either way, that's going to drain money, right? You're talking about $30 a week, so we're talking about getting up there. It's a lot of money, but it's not going to kill you, especially if you're reducing in things that don't matter. So you get the cafe latte, but you downsized your car. Okay, great. Are you happy? Hope you are, because that's why you're doing this. Plenty of ways to do this, okay? I have, nicer phones. I have, MacBook. These types of things are things that I do work with and I enjoy them. But I'm not going to spend money on coffee at the store. I'm not going to spend money on eating out all the time. I bring my lunch to work. All these things, I make sacrifices. This is how you do it, guys. The FIRE community, if you've ever heard of them, it's Financial Independence Retire Early. It's a community that wants to aim at retiring well before retirement age. Most of them aim for around 30 years old. And they do this by doing extreme cutting. So if you're interested in trying to find extreme ways to cut, if you're really desperate, look into that kind of stuff. But they prove that almost anyone can live off half their income. It's essential. They live off a single half income. It's all about values and intentional design, but it is a mindset shift. And what you need to say to yourself is, I could stay at home and homeschool if I choose to stop over-consuming, overspending, and outsourcing everything. Because you can do it. Guarantee you can't do it. And I'm going to teach you some more. You're probably thinking like, well, I got a bunch of excuses in my head as to why I can't do that. I live in San Francisco, Okay. Let's talk about that. Move, adapt, or reimagine what good success looks like. All right. Moving from a high-cost area to one like mine, Cleveland, a low-cost area, can cut costs by around 40 to 60%, according to smartasset.com. Now, they have a cost of living calculator, and this is specific to like mortgages. I'm telling you, there's great cities out there that you don't need to pay an arm and a leg for in the United States. Maybe not in Canada, maybe not in some of the other parts of the world, but here in the United States, you're talking about like Cleveland is low cost of living. I believe Detroit's still pretty low. These aren't cities that are fancy and you're going to want to write home about necessarily, but they are big cities. They have amenities. You got Buffalo. You have Columbus, Ohio. You have Cincinnati. Cincinnati's becoming a little more expensive, and so is Columbus. So is Cleveland. But you get my point. You can find where these cities are giving you the most disposable income possible, where you're making more relative to the costs that you spend. Housing costs less, food costs less. Boy, I actually pulled out a calculator. Let me see if I can find it here. And I compared it to New York City. So where I live in Cleveland is more of an expensive area, but it's still Cleveland Metro. I compared it to New York City. Put in $100,000 household income, and then it gets broken down by how much more I'm going to pay in taxes, how much more I'm going to pay in housing, and how much more I pay in food. And this should be mind-blowing for you. So if I want to live in New York City and have the same standard of living, I'm going to have to earn, if I live in Cleveland, I have to earn, and I'm earning $100,000 in New York City, I will have to earn $136,419, which is 36% higher to maintain the same standard of living, supposedly. And I even question that because you can't find 1,200 square foot in New York City for what I'm doing. But it does say housing is significantly higher. In fact, it's 85% higher, the housing difference between New York and Cleveland. Food's 29% higher, taxes are 15% higher. Not good. You can move unless you're trapped there because of a job. But that's your choice. Maybe you can move to a cheaper area and commute in, get some work done. There are strategies galore to be able to make this happen. Yeah, that's a great way to do that. Another one is reimagine your career. If working fewer hours, switching remote, or downshifting to freelance could gain you back like 20 hours plus hours a week, hey, why not do that? Even with a pay cut, you may come out ahead when you remove the commuting, childcare, and stress expenses. All the things you need because you just can't get on the time in the day. So you got to eat out, and then you got to grab a coffee on the way to work, and you got to do all this stuff, right? Look at your options. Don't write it off immediately. Oh, no, I don't want to take a step back. Well, maybe it's not taking a step back. Maybe it's a lateral move that just pays less in another city that you can afford more, even with the pay cut. Another way to do it is both work and actually tag team between parents. This is difficult. It's easier when you work in healthcare because you can work as needed, let's say, and just make it flexible, where I might work 68 hours one week like I am next week, which really stinks. And I might take the next week off. And my wife might do the same thing, and we stagger. And that way we always have a full-time income, but someone's always home. And we can, really hit the OT hard and still bring in a whole bunch. And this is not something that you would want to sustain for too long, but it is a way for both parents to actually become part of the education or be involved in their education with their children and still work, even though this episode's more about getting them home. But that might be a good way to get it going save up a whole bunch of money to pay off the cars, pay off the whatever, get out of debt, and then finally take it easy. Get rid of those ridiculous student loans too. Pay those off as fast as possible. Do the Dave Ramsey stuff, guys. If you haven't looked into Dave Ramsey, look into Dave Ramsey. He's not going to make you poor. I can guarantee that. We did the Dave Ramsey stuff, and I do not regret it at all. Gets rid of all your bills. Speaking of getting rid of all your bills, well, once you get rid of all your bills, you get to build a huge safety net. So build at least 3 to 6 months of living expenses that you can live on should you run into a problem. Like one person gets sick and can't work. You're going to need that. Or a big expense comes up, like the engine goes out on your car or transmission or whatever it might be. You're going to need to do that, and then you got to ramp it back up, get the money back. I ideally recommend 6 to 12 months of what you need to live on before switching to one income. And the reason is because you want the ability to be able to survive long-term without the stress. You're going to be stressing out otherwise. And, two things happen at once and you're really in some trouble. So I recommend almost a year of income, 6 months to a year of income. That'll give you enough buffer to be able to really do anything. Use tools like You Need a Budget. We call it YNAB. I've used that in the past. Like it. It's expensive for what it is. Every dollar's pretty good. I have not subscribed to that. I built my own spreadsheet, and that's kind of how I do it now. But I've used a lot of tools in the past that are budget trackers that automatically integrate with your bank, and that's kind of cool. And you just go back and classify them retroactively. But I do like YNAB and Every Dollar for the reason that it's future focused, that you make a plan with your money and then you just allocate those dollars as they come in, as opposed to retrospectively just seeing how much you spent. That's a good way to overspend every time. So last thing I want to talk about is your legacy. This isn't a financial decision, guys. We're not talking about how to invest. We're not talking about how to this isn't in the financial world. This is how to free up your income enough, or your financial world enough where you could have a parent stay at home. Homeschooling or unschooling isn't just about saving money or time. It's about giving your kids the freedoms, presence, and customized learning that you desire. It's your legacy. No one lies on their deathbed wishing they spent more time at work or had a better car. This is about breaking free from the modern slavery to debt, burnout, and busyness that we all experience. Stuff is stuff. Kids are your legacy. Some actionable tips for you. Track every dollar for the next 90 days. See where you're at. Get an accurate reading. That's step one, right? Know where you're at. Let's live in reality. Read a couple books. Listen to a couple podcasts. Some that I would recommend are I Will Teach You to Be Rich by Ramit Sethi. That one opened up my eyes, and only spend money. Like, don't feel bad about spending money, but spend money on things that matter to you and ruthlessly cut everything else. That's why I live in a 1,200 square foot house. That's a double. Because I really don't care. I've lived in a small place almost all my life. If I upgrade, then I'll probably get antsy and I'll care. Otherwise, boom, I'm just doing this. I'm also building a box truck that's smaller. I'm afraid if I go any bigger, it's going to make the box truck seem too small. And I'm converting the box truck into an RV for you new listeners. And we're going to be traveling all over. Another one I highly, 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 highly recommend, The Total Money Makeover by Dave Ramsey. This is a life changer. It's a life-changing book. If you actually adopt his principles, decide to cut, go ruthless, and get your life in order, you eliminate debt, and you will have so much extra disposable income. Okay? You may not need two incomes just by that. Another guy I listened to, and he's more about the lifestyle stuff of it, is Radical Personal Finance. His name's Josh Sheets. I'll provide links to these guys in the description of this podcast episode as well. There are more books I could tell you to read, but I'm just going to stop there because I'm probably going to overwhelm you otherwise. Big finance guy. Another one, sell the car. Cancel the subscriptions, downsize that home, just like we were talking about. Find a remote job. If you could find a remote job and then manage your children in between, that's not a bad option. Then you could actually still have 2 working parents and bring it in, and you could do all the stuff I'm telling you, and then blast off into the future with no debt, like at light speed, and redesign your entire life the way you want it. Build a 6-month emergency fund after you have gotten out of debt. That's what I suggest. I follow the Dave Ramsey plan. And value time over toys. Your time's the most valuable thing. Time and energy are the most valuable things. You're never going to get replenished on time. So in conclusion, living on one income is not just doable. It's often the smarter, freer, and more meaningful choice. You're going to pay less in taxes if you do that. You actually get to keep more of your income. You can afford to homeschool if you're willing to design your life around what really matters. This isn't about deprivation, it's about liberation. You're making the wisest decisions for you and your children. Your kids are worth it, and deep down, you already know that. So when you catch yourself making those excuses like, well, we can't do that. No, it's a choice. You could do whatever you want. People have done radical things. Check out that FIRE movement, financial independence, retire early, and see how much people are willing to cut to achieve their goals. And they do it without sacrificing everything. At least, some of them, I'm sure, sacrifice quite a bit. But there are those who don't sacrifice everything, and they're very happy doing what they're doing, and they just put all that money into the bank. And I'm talking about like saving over half their income. It's crazy. So with that, I'm going to end today's episode. So stay curious, stay unschooled, and stay away from the algebra nightmares. I'll catch you in the next episode. So here's where we roll up our sleeves and bring out the big guns. If you support our mission, then please leave a review. On Unschooled Unleashed, we are talking about using a radical approach to education in today's world, and the more 5-star reviews we have, the more people will feel comfortable with the ideas, strategies, and principles we discuss. It gives legitimacy to our message, and the podcast's algorithm prioritizes us so we can reach more people. You may even have your 5-star review read on our podcast. Before I let you go, I have to pause and say this from the bottom of my heart. Thank you. Your presence here is the fuel that ignites this movement. I am incredibly moved that you trust in us enough to click play. You, my friends, are the caped heroes in this story, the guardians of your family's learning journey, and a beacon of hope for your community. Be bold. Do what you think is best for you and your family. Thanks again for tuning in and taking this courageous leap outside of the box for this educational revolution. Welcome to the front line.